What's up, fight fans? It's Big Tone MMA back here with Ben Smith of MMA Today, and we are here for Tough Guys episode 5.
Correct, five, yes.
Is that it? Are we on 5?
We're on five, we're on five.
And this is Tough 27, aka Tough Undefeated. Show has been pretty good so far, right, Ben?
Yeah, I've quite enjoyed it. It's got a variety of characters in the roster. Two interesting coaches that are kind of different in the way they do things. It's shaping up well.
And I mean, entering this episode, Team DC was 4-0, and I tweeted out, he's 4-0, and his best fighter, Tyler Diamond, hasn't even fought yet. And then, like, right off the bat, things kind of popped up involving Tyler Diamond because Suman Mokhtarian, I think that's how you pronounce his name,
Yeah.
brother in the UFC, wants Tyler Diamond, which looks like a huge mismatch on paper. Who would you take in that? What would your prediction be on that matchup?
Could you really see Suman doing much against him? You'd have to favour for the win. It's how he gets that wins, I suppose.
Yeah, and I guess there's a big obstacle on the way for Suman. We'll get to that at the end of the episode now. But basically, he was just chatting shit, as the British people say. And he said Tyler Diamond was cocky because he got picked number 1 and he thinks he's all that. I don't know. I didn't really get that impression. I've seen a lot of interviews with the guy. I've never really gotten that impression. So I'm not sure. Is that something you've noticed?
Suman, I don't think is. Suman thinks is number 1 or Diamond.
Suman thinks that Diamond is very cocky and full of himself.
No, it seems completely the opposite. I mean, I saw the bit where he's just chilling painting, and then someone comes along, starts calling him brash, cocky, and you're like, the guy couldn't be any more chill if he tried. Like, he's sitting at the table doing a little painting, like not talking to anyone. I think he seems pretty rooted, to be honest. He seems just concentrated when he's not doing things, unlike the rest, like he's also Tylan Clark, who we'll get onto later, couldn't pass time any other way than chatting shit, as you put it, to other people.
Yeah.
He seems like he's got his mind in a better place. He's finding ways to keep occupied.
And we did have, I think every episode there's at least one prank, but I thought the prank this week was good. They like taped over the of the undefeated, so it just said Team Miocic defeated because they were 0-4 at that point. And I thought it was funny, but then the assistant coach came along and ruined it because he took down the tape before anybody could even see it.
Yeah, I thought that was being a bit too serious. I don't know. Like, it could be viewing it as if the fighters see that, it might be a demotivator. But for me, if my fighters see that, if I see the team like completely mocking the team saying they're defeated, that would motivate me personally. And I'm sure many of the fighters in Steve's camp think the same. Bit of a weird one. I mean, do you think it was a bit overconfident, a bit too much after just 4 fights in? I know he's 4-0, but do you think it's a bit calmer in the end, as we'll get onto?
It's a little cheeky, to put another British phrase out there. But I mean, the 4-0 is big, I think, in the Ultimate Fighter. Like, a lot of teams don't even get to that. And I mean, it's like they probably get really bored, and there's probably someone pushing them behind the scenes to do a prank every week as well. And I thought it was a decent one. And it's like the assistant coach there just like played like such buzzkill, like taking it off before anyone like notable even saw it. And it's like, even if they did see it, it's like bulletin board material, which, NFL teams or NBA, whatever, professional sports teams they'll take like an article from like the media and say like, well, they say we have no chance, like, let's go prove them wrong, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You could have used it as that. So I didn't really understand that. But anyway, this is when we found out shortly after that Suman's had re-injured his knee, apparently. has a history of knee injuries, which we'll get into later. And then we kind of get into the backstory of Tylan Clark's uh, upbringing. You know, not he sounded like he was one of those hood adjacent kids. I don't know if you're aware of that term, hood adjacent, where you kind of
Does it
like,
mean like the sort of upper class kind of, or no?
well, like you live in the suburbs, but you probably go to a school where everybody's from the hood, uh,
Right.
and like you might have one parent that lives in the bad part of town and one parent that lives in the nice part of town. So you kind of like juggle both things.
No.
That's what kind of what it. That's the impression I got. It sounded like he had a good family behind him, though. You know,
Yes.
mom, dad, and everybody was like rooting for him and everything. So that was cool to see. Very confident guy. Said he wanted to fight Justin Gaethje. I'm not sure how we feel about that. Uh,
No.
I like the confidence at least.
The
Uh,
thoughts there. It's just the execution.
yeah, especially how the way the fight went, which we'll get to. But as everybody knows, Ultimate Fighter happens in Las Vegas, so the UFC Performance Institute is going to be right there, which is great for someone like Suman who had his knee injured. He gets to go see like a top class doctor. Got that knee checked out. How big of an advantage do you think it is that they're like everybody's in Vegas, you know, have all these resources and whatnot?
And I think they kind of have to do it, don't they? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. They're not allowed like certain members of their own team in the Ultimate Fighter, are they? It's sort of
Yeah,
just what they're stuck with. So I mean, when you've not got that going against you, you have to have something other than just the standard coaches and such that you're given. And obviously, when you're fighting that often, when you're fighting this often in the Ultimate Fighter, so frequently, you have to have something nearby where you can facilitate your needs. And obviously, injury is going to be a common part of the show, as it has been this series already.
and so the doctor said that it's not, you know, it's not serious. He's not going to have to come off the show or anything. It sounded like it was just like tissue damage, and something he's just going to have to like tough it out basically. And there was some like exercises he could do to strengthen the muscles around the pre-injured MCL, ACL joint. So good and bad news, I guess. But I guess the big talking point that came out of that whole situation was I thought it was Kane. I think I might be wrong in this situation. Was it Kane that kind of snuck in and saw what was going on at the Performance Institute where he was getting his knee checked? Or was that another coach from Team DC?
I think it was a random coach because he was saying at the time, like, I'm pretty sure I heard him say, "Oh, he's just a nobody trying to get his face on the TV." Well, obviously, Kane's not really a nobody, so I'm pretty sure it is just a no mark as such, without meaning any disrespect.
So someone from the Team DC coaching staff at least saw that. Uh, did you think that was crossing the line?
Not really. I don't think so. I mean, it's an injury, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, how can you really hide an injury? If you're limping, they're not going to be like, "Oh, I wonder what's happened to him." Like, it's clear you've got an injury. So I don't really see the point in spining on it. Really, sorry, I don't see the point of it. I don't see the point of complaining about the fact that he's been looking and checking.
I guess, but did everybody know about the injury before? Because that's the thing. Because that assistant coach afterwards was like, you know, making a big deal out of it, like letting everybody know his knee's injured, that his knee's injured. I'm not sure if that was public knowledge before, but now everybody knows. I
I
mean,
guess maybe part of it that it's zooming off was maybe the fact that like he didn't get a chance to tell everyone first and be upfront about it. That
yeah.
it took him a while to say it. Maybe that could have played in his mind and been like, "Well, I didn't really get a chance to talk to anybody."
I mean, how big of a disadvantage is it that everybody knows it? I mean, we'll have to get into it later, but I mean, whoever he fights is going to know he's got the injured knee. I mean, those inside leg kicks. You know what's going to happen there?
Yeah, it's gonna be pretty brutal.
Yeah. So I mean, you'd have to think it's not a good thing. We'll put it that way. Um, Getting into the fight, obviously Tylan Clark versus Trezano. Didn't really get a whole lot of backstory on Trezano besides the fact that he has like this gigantic family, which makes
Yeah,
sense because he's half Italian and half Irish, and both of those ethnicities are known to have a lot of kids. So there wasn't a whole lot going on there. Tylan Clark's story was a little bit more interesting, I guess. Were you
yeah.
drawn to either one?
Not really. I mean, Thailand, it confused me a little bit because he's like one of those guys, we see it so often, especially in combat sports, where by the sounds of it, he had a rough upbringing, saying he was in like a gang infected neighborhood or whatever. And like, for me, if you have that like poor of an upbringing, surely if you're like looking to work it, you remain rooted. Like, remember how bad things used to be. I'm all for like showing off stuff, sure, but when you're that arrogant after the struggles you've been through, I think you should more be looking to be a role model sort of thing than just arrogant like he was. So I don't know, but I won't say I was leaned towards either guy. Was you?
I not really. I knew on paper this was a massive, massive. I mean, if there was like betting odds, which there aren't because it's pre-tape show, I would have to imagine Trezano would be like a big favorite. So yeah, I guess you're always kind of rooting for the underdog. And I guess like I was kind of a little bit more drawn to Ty's story, despite his ridiculous claim of wanting to fight just or beat Justin Gaethje. But it is what it is. And there was some interesting game planning by DC and things said by DC said Ty needs to get the fight to the ground, and then Tylan Clark said that Trezano was bad off of had bad grappling, was bad off his back basically, and that's that he was going to exploit that. Which when we get into the fight will look funny. But so when the fight night comes, the team DC guys, they all wore bandanas because they were going to rob Trezano. Not only on paper is he the big favorite, but also rob him of the chance of being the Ultimate Fighter. I thought it was a cool. I've been I've been on the loving DC a little bit too much, so I don't know if I'm like picking up on stupid little things, but it just seems like something a coach would do. That's just kind of keeping the team together and motivating them.
Sorry, could you repeat that sentence? My internet connection went off for a split second then.
Oh yeah, so like the team DC guys coming into the fight, they all wore the team color bandanas because
Yeah,
they were gonna rob Trezano of his shot at the Ultimate Fighter, and also I think it was because he was a big underdog, so rob him of that. And I've been really high on DC, so I don't know if it's just me piling on the love for DC, but that seemed like such like a coach's like motivational, like keep the team together and like I don't know, savvy kind of move. I don't know if I'm going overboard now with my DC love.
no, I wouldn't say that. I think you're right. Like, it obviously brings some togetherness there, and when you know that like you're 4-0 in the Ultimate Fighter, and then you've got like kind of as you say, a huge underdog going into it. I think you need that sort of extra lift, and I mean, you can't really win fights in ability alone. There needs to be some mental positivity there, and I think that was a good idea in hindsight. But of course, as we move on to it, it didn't really work out.
No, it didn't really. And so I guess we can't put it off any longer. We'll get into the fight itself. The Ultimate Fighter fights, of course, are 2 rounds, unless the judges have it, all tied up. Then it goes to a sudden death round. But basically, starts off. Clark shoots early for the takedown, just like DC and them said. He needs to get the fight to the ground, but Trezano defended it really well, and they clinched. And then he ate a low blow, so he had to stop the action, and they got separated. Um, and it was it was at that point, shortly after, where Clark slipped a punt. I think he slipped back and landed a straight right and actually knocked Trezano down, which was very surprising to me, because I thought he had huge disadvantage on the feet. What were you thinking at this point? Clark just knocked down Trezano. What's going through your head?
I'm thinking it's going to be 5-0, but immediately after that, just looked way too desperate. And like prior to the knockdown and for the rest of the fight, obviously, which we'll cover, I thought he looked a bit robotic in his striking. There wasn't really any fluidity in his strikes. There weren't any creativity as such, just sort of the same combinations all the time. This one got through the gap, knocked him down. Good chance to finish there, but to be fair, Trezano, I thought he recovered really well.
Yeah, and it was from there. I mean, Trezano did recover well, clinched, and then Clark looks for the takedown again. Trezano actually reverses up against the cage, and he takes Clark down. And then I'm surprised again because I'm like, Clark's the one who's supposed to have the grappling advantage, right? And
Yeah,
Trezano's taking him down. So now I'm all confused. I don't know what you were thinking at this point, like what your expectations were, but I was very confused. How are you feeling?
yeah. I mean, even though I had it as maybe a drawn round, it was a close round. I was thinking like Clark doesn't look to have the advantage anywhere, and like even though he'd already knocked him down, as silly as it sounds, I couldn't see a way in which he was going to win the fight. What was you thinking of this
I,
point?
I mean, it got so bad from there. It was like I think Trezano got another takedown. He took the back, and then when they did get back to the feet, it was like Trezano's was locked in at that point. His jab
Yeah,
was just like he was just banging home the jab. His jab really impressed me. I don't know about you, but that thing was landed over and over again. And
yeah,
I actually wound up scoring the round for him despite the knockdown from Clark. I don't know how did you score it?
yeah. I wouldn't argue against that. I had it either a draw or Trezano winning it. I didn't see it at all for Clark. The only thing that went in his favour, of course, was the knockdown in the first maybe minute and a half of the round. But Trezano certainly had the better round. I think it's just that knockdown.
Yeah. So either way, Clark not looking good after round one, despite the knockdown, which I mean that's usually not the case. But on to round two. Obviously Trezano looks fresher, landing, all kinds of variety of kicks at this point, leg kicks, teeps to the body. Clark once again shoots for the takedown. Once again gets reversed and taken down himself, and then it's just Trezano riding him out, ground and pound domination. Like Clark the fight was over before it was over. We all knew it. It just took the ref stepping in, and it wasn't. I mean, as exciting as the first round was, the second round was such a letdown. I thought
Yeah.
I don't know if you I think you were also not very excited about the second round.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you could see after round one that sort of, I don't know if it's just his attitude, like slouching around, but it looked like Clark was absolutely knackered, like just complete empty gas tank, which is bizarre to see after just one round. And then it came out that that was the case because in round two, he just had nothing in him. Like you saw him, as you say there, the fight was over before it was officially over. I think with about 2 minutes to go, he's already given up his back. Like, he's already given away the rear naked choke with ease, although it wasn't taken. He just wasn't even defending himself, and it's like he just seemed to give up at that point.
Yeah, and I guess that's the good thing about TUF, right? It kind of separates, who's going to survive in the UFC and who's not. Because, I mean, if you can't go 7 minutes in the UFC, especially at these lower weight classes, I mean, you don't have a future. Uh,
No,
and no disrespect to Tylan Clark. maybe he'll fix that up in the future or tighten that up in the future. But I mean, dude, you're just not gonna make it at this level if you can't even go two full rounds. UFC fights are 3 rounds, bro. Like it's a
But
tough
yeah,
test,
I'm in the event or title shot.
right? 5 rounds. Can you imagine? It's just especially if we were talking about next season of Tough where they're doing the heavyweights. Okay, that's a little bit different. There's a lot of guys at heavyweight who can only go like 5 minutes before they tire out, but
Yeah.
not at these divisions, right? I mean, these divisions you
No.
have to have that cardio.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at heavyweight, you can look up to a sort of like Derek Lewis and think, oh, he lasts about 2 minutes and is the top 10. But like, name me one featherweight that gasses in 6 minutes. It is quite embarrassing for him, really.
Yeah. So Trezano wins. Team Miocic finally gets a win. It's only 4-1 Team DC now. Um, DC gets to make the pick. He takes Suman, who was featured throughout the beginning of this episode. We know with the whole knee injury thing, so I thought that was interesting. Well, I guess that's smart on his part, actually. Picking the guy that he knows is dealing with not an injury, but I guess what would you call it, tenderness or whatever around his knee
Yeah.
versus Ricky Steele. So we're still not getting to see Tyler Diamond. I feel like I really want to see the kid. We're already on to episode 6. Will be next week, and we won't have seen Tyler Diamond in the cage yet. So I'm a little disappointed. I don't know. Is there someone that you wanted to see that hasn't had a fight yet?
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I was looking forward to seeing Jay Cuccinello, but as we know, that didn't really go to plan. So I thought he might have done a little bit better. He's competed in some major organizations. Thought like his experience would overwhelm everyone, to be honest. But yeah, one of the many times that I've been wrong. So that didn't really work out. Yeah, in terms of the Tyler Diamond thing, what got me is like I thought Stipe personally was looking for a way out of making that fight. I think he knows that Suman would really struggle against him. And I think he's thinking like, right, this is my prime opportunity to sort of not get him against Diamond and sort of like use an excuse. Do you not think?
I could see that. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's such a mismatch. I mean, you would want to avoid it.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is going to be any easier for. I mean, we'll get into that right now. Like, let's just jump into the next week's matchup. Obviously, we have the great reference point from our prospect expert Sean Bitter, and he breaks down Suman here. He's 25 years old, trains out of the Australian top team with his brother. Pros, good Muay Thai, dangerous either from the top or the bottom with his submissions, and he's very aware. His grappling awareness is A plus. Basically, he's very astute on the ground. I think is what Sean is trying to say, and he has good striking. Is always looking to enter the clinch. Has decent power in his hands. Nice overhand right. Once again, strong submission game. And the only con he has against him, and he's not really fought anybody of note or anybody even really at his level. So this would be the first time that he's really getting tested. Have you seen anything of Suman before?
I've seen clips, but not really full fights. He tends to get things done in the first round, I believe. I think he's got quite a few first round submissions. So maybe that could be something that works against him against someone at a higher level, someone that's actually going to take him the distance. And as we'll get onto him, is the opponent that he faces actually, I think all 5 or 6 of his wins have gone the distance. So I mean, he's perfect for this show.
Yeah, Ricky, the Karate Kid Steele. He's a little bit older for this show. He's 29. All his wins, 5-0, and all his wins have been by decision, as you said. Big, tall guy, 5'11". for 145. You know, pro Sean Bitter says his pros are he has an excellent karate base as the nickname suggests. Good use of the oblique kick, distance control, very solid, uh, damaging leg kicks and diverse kickboxing attack. Doesn't have any cons for him. Couldn't figure out one, I guess. Steel, and he goes on to say the only thing, going against Steel is there's some ring rust. He hasn't fought since February of 2016. And even though his fights go the distance, they're usually exciting fights. So at least on paper, I mean, it's not looking good for Suman, a guy that can obviously go 3 rounds versus a guy who's kind of been unproven. Hasn't really fought anyone at a high level. This will be his first real test, and we're not sure about his gas tank. So we'll have to. It's kind of it's a striker versus grappler old school matchup, right?
Yeah, correct.
So a
Do you
little
think
bit.
that the sort of grappling of Suman could play a factor? Everyone seems to say and think that the style of wrestling favors tough. Do you think that could play into his hands?
I think the thing with Suman though is I don't know if he has the wrestling. There's a lot of question marks here. Like we don't know what Ricky's takedown defense looks like. Sean didn't really get into that. I don't think Suman really has much of a takedown game though. I know
Yeah.
he has the BJJ, but I don't know how he's going to get there, and I think he's severely outmatched on the feet. That's how I read it. I don't know how you read it.
And I guess the other thing is like, of course, it's all well submitting cans on the Australian scene, but like, can you do it at a higher level? Like, a lot of people get all finishes in regional, but as soon as they take that step up, finishes become harder to get by. How does he fare against someone that's a lot better and more experienced?
Well, it's obvious. So obviously, team like DC picked these fights, right? So he's confident that his guy Ricky Steele can beat Suman, and DC, I'm piling on the love again, but he's been basically perfect this entire season. So I'm gonna have to go with his judgment as well. I mean, his judgment's kind of been perfect so far. So I mean, if he thinks he can take him, I think he can take him.
Yeah,
So it's hard to bet against DC at this point, right?
yeah, I guess so. I mean, you have to go with who's been the better coach so far, who's got the better results. Do you think that sort of DC's success has come from his picks mainly, or his actual coaching ability? What do you think? What do you think's played the bigger factor so far?
I think it's both. I think Stipe picked very poorly, and maybe misguidedly. I think I talked about that in the first episode with John, where I think Stipe might have been confused as to how the picking worked. Uh,
Yeah,
and so, yeah, it's a little bit of both because I'd say the roster that DC has is better, but clearly I think he's more invested. I think he just has more natural coaching ability than Stipe. And it
yeah,
doesn't hurt to have someone like Kane fucking Velasquez, also helping as your assistant coach. I mean, that's a little insane, right?
yeah. It's not too shabby.
Right. Like this is like a little overkill. Like not only do you get DC, like you get Kane Velasquez as well to
He's
help.
probably good enough to be a tough coach in his own right.
Yeah,
Easiest.
right. It's a little overkill. So, but circling back to Tyler Diamond, I mean, some stuff happened in real time. Obviously, Tough is pre-recorded and everything. So, this stuff has all happened in the past. But what happened just over the weekend? Combate Americas, a Mexican American promotion, Was out here in California, my home state, up in Sacramento. We actually had a writer out there, Stephen. Oh God, I'm not gonna remember his last name.
Is it summer? Have I got that? Oh,
No, it's Stephen something. Uh, Not gonna remember, but he goes by a bunch, and it's not my fault because he goes by like 30 different nicknames. He's always changing his
right.
Twitter handle. I think it was Esteban. He also goes by Esteban, but
Oh, I see. I was thinking of the guy that covers the Italian stuff, thinking maybe he was
no.
chilling with you there in America.
So he's from Northern California. So he was at the Sacramento event, and there was three Nick Diaz Academy fighters on that card, and even though it's called Nick Diaz Academy, it's really Nate Diaz's fighters. He's the one who's there at the gym, coaching them and helping them out. Nick Diaz spends like all of his time in Vegas partying nowadays. So it's really Nate Diaz's fighters, to be honest. So Nate is there supporting them. Nick is not. Of course, it's Northern California. So who else is going to be there? It's going to be Team Alpha Male. All the normal Northern California gyms. So I guess at some point, Nate Diaz supposedly pushes Clay Guida in the back after one of his fighter loses. You know, these events. I've been to these events. It's a real regional scene, and I'm sure you've been to some regional fights where it's a little different than if you go to like a UFC or a Bellator, right?
Yeah, there's just like no restrictions on where you go, or you can't see a security guard in sight. Just everything's free for all, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, they're using like makeshift gates to try to keep people away from the cage. So
Yeah,
and I'm not like harping on the promote. It's a great promotion, honestly. They do a great job for the money and the budget that they have and everything. But I mean, to have personalities like Nate Diaz and Clay Guida and Tyler Diamond in the building. I mean, that's just maybe a little bit overload for them. So basically, Clay, at least what Clay Guida is claiming is he got pushed in the back by Nate Diaz, and then Tyler Diamond, who's on this TUF season, says he got slapped in the face by Nate. And posted on Twitter afterwards and said, "You slapped like a bitch, Nate," and added him and everything with a big middle finger. Uh, what do you make of that whole situation? I guess Nate's also under investigation by the Sacramento Police Department or something.
yeah. I mean, has there been any like detail on if Tyler Diamond's actually done anything, or was it unprovoked?
The details are very. I know a couple. I know all the. Actually, I know all the Nick Diaz Academy fighters that were on the card that night, and they're all being very tight-lipped about what happened. But basically saying that it was a bunch of nothing. Classic. Shoving. But no real punches thrown. Nobody got hurt. Obviously, we would have found out about that by now. Um,
Yeah.
so, but Clay Guida's at least claiming uh, some kind of injury. And Tyler Diamond said he got slapped. So,
I mean, you can't be surprised, really, can you? I mean, it certainly wasn't the most shocking news of the week. Um, I think Diamond definitely played the right decision by saying it on Twitter and not to his face at the time. I think that's certainly a smart move. But yeah, what can you say? I mean, Nate Diaz is just Diaz, isn't it? What can you do? How do you stop a guy like him, really?
I mean, I've met the guy many times in person. He's a lot bigger than you would expect. And I don't think Tyler Diamond's a very big guy. I think me and Tyler Diamond are about the same height.
Yeah,
So yeah, probably you're probably right. Probably a good idea to say that on Twitter and not to his face. But I mean, that's kind of like I don't know. I feel like if I got stuck and slapped, I would wear that as kind of like a badge of honor.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it not sort of like, oh fuck, I got slapped by Nate Diaz? Like, is it? I take it as a compliment personally, but yeah,
It,
it's they're just two completely different people as well. Though, like, no offense to Diamond, but he's a bit of a pretty boy, if we're being honest. And then you got Diaz, just complete opposite, just some rough guy that casually smokes weed and likes to slap everyone he sees. So, I mean, yeah, he definitely did the right thing by just steering clear of that.
me personally, I would just, every party I was at, I'd be like, yeah, one time I got slapped by Nate Diaz. I got stopped in the
Yeah,
front,
exactly.
you know?
Grandkids on the rocking chair just telling him about the time he got slapped by Nate Diaz.
uh, anyway, on that note, we will end this episode. I really hope I have this number right. Episode 5 of Tough Guys. Next week, we will see Suman Mokhtarian versus Ricky Steele. To recap once again, Mike Trezano finished Thailand, the Land Shark Clark, great nickname, by second round TKO. So that's what happened, and we'll see you guys next week for episode 6, Suman Mokhtarian versus Ricky Steele. Thanks, guys, and follow us at MMAtoday.com.